So be here on Monday. Okay. So this is your opportunity. Who has a question about one of the problems on the quiz? Lauren.
Number 2.
All right, let's look at number 2. First of all, let's get our sketch up here, the original. Okay, there's the original. Number 2 says -2 f of x. Now there are 2 things happening in this problem. If you have -1.5, then that means you got one of the things right, but you missed the other one. There were 2 things. What are the 2 things happening in this problem? Flips upside down. It has to flip upside down, and I'll say upside down. And it's twice as tall. So I'll do one at a time. The original picture goes over 2 and up 3. So this one's going to go over 2 and up 6. The original picture goes over 1 and down 2. So it's going to go over 1 and down 4. There's the stretch, 2 times as tall. Now I'm going to flip it upside down. So this guy looks like this. And this one looks like this. Okay? Now, that exact problem isn't going to be on Monday's quiz. What are you supposed to be getting right now from this? If there's a negative out in front, it flips it upside down. If there's a multiplier here, whatever that is, it multiplies the height by that amount. So if that number were a half, then everything would be half as tall. It's a height thing. All right, anybody have any other questions about the quiz? Mr. Rokoff? Because you took it this morning and I have a first period class, so I didn't get ready. Okay? Jordan? Number 5. Now, number 5, there's only one thing happening, so you either got it right or you didn't. Couldn't really give you partial credit on this because there's only one change. What is the one change that's happening? We're dividing the width. This number divides the width. So in other words, your sidewaysness, your width, is being divided by 2. So Jordan, back to the original. I went over 2, up 3. Now I'm only going to go over 1, up 3. Half as far. So over 1, up 3. And then I went over 1, down 2. Now I'm only going to go over a half and down 2. Okay, Jordan, does that make sense to you? Moses.
Just to make sure this rule is right, if the absolute value is on the outside, you just would make sure that everything's on the
On the top.
positive. But if it's in the inside, you yeah.
Whatever's on the right gets recopied on the left. Yep. Anybody else? Well, I gave you a copy of the answers to practice test 2. Not practice test 2, graph worksheet 2, graph practice 2. So I'm going to come around and make sure you did graph practice 2. gonna handle any other questions we need to talk about. I wanna see your graph practice 2, front and back. Taylor, did you do that practice too? Good job. How about you? Why not? Oh, we did graph practice 1 already. That's a copy. I know. Well, then maybe you should be asking questions. Austin, app's better than none.
Guess what? Let's be
You two together have a good assignment.
Oh, I did that. Oh, you did that? Oh.
So I'm going to talk to
I do really like the choice of and catch.
Oh, yeah, I'll go.
Like I
I literally,
like
it took so much for me to like.
A or B.
What do you have?
Does anybody have a question about graph practice 2? Did anybody need to look at something from graph practice 2? I gave you the answers, but maybe you couldn't figure it out. Graph practice 2. All right, let's take a look at our practice test number 1 then. We're gonna do practice test number 1 tonight. Monday night, or Monday we'll do number 2. Tuesday we'll do number 3. Wednesday you do not have class, and Thursday is our test.
Why don't we have class?
SAT.
Wait, what? SAT?
Yes.
I'm really scared. I already took it. I don't want to take it.
All right, now,
Have you got any A's for practice test yet?
yep, yep. Practice test number 1, it has graphs on the front of it. This is not the way the actual test is formatted. The test is formatted like practice test 3. But the problems are all exactly the same. So since we have, you need a ring binder. So that everything will be organized. Okay, since we have a quiz on Monday over graphing, let's do the graphing part first. And then I will do as much of this as I have time to, but I still want to get your test back, so we won't get the whole practice test done. But let's do the graphing part because of the quiz on Monday. So this picture, now pay attention to how many blocks it's encompassing. This picture looks like this. This is the original. A, we have actually already talked about. What happens in picture A? It's going to be twice as tall and upside down. So I'm going to take this picture and I'm going to make it twice as tall. So instead of coming over 1 down 2, it's going to go over 1 down 4. And instead of going over 2 up 3, it's going over 2 up 6. Are you following along? Now we have to turn it upside down. Now some of you can probably do that in one step. I can't, so I do it in 2. Get rid of the black. The red is the answer. Does anybody have a question? Yes, Katie.
So when you're doing, like when you're multiplying the height and it's a negative, could you just do like -2 times 3 and then
Absolutely, absolutely. And do it all in one step. You sure could. You sure could. Okay? All right, B. Now there's a lot going on in B. We're taking the absolute value of the original picture and then doing what to it? Down 2. All right, so this is what Moses was asking about earlier. When you take the absolute value of the whole thing, what happens? Positive part stays positive and the negative part gets folded up. So all I'm going to do in step 1 is pop this up. And then the rest of it's going to stay exactly the same. So I've taken care of the absolute value. Look at your rules if you've forgotten. I'm going to take the absolute value of the whole thing. The top part stays on top, and the bottom part comes up to the top. Now, we're going to take this picture and drop it down to so every point comes down 2. So the purple is the answer. Any question about that? Again, 2 things are happening. What's happening in problem C? Can you tell? What's this going to do? Across which axis? Y-axis. This way. And then what do I do with this? Up 1. Remember, negatives flip. Negatives out in front flip you upside down. Negatives on the X flip you sideways. Okay, so here we go. We're going to flip across the Y-axis. takes care of the negative part. Look at what I did. Flips this way. Now I'm going to raise it all up 1. So everything just comes up 1 unit. The red is the answer. Everybody still doing okay? All right, 2 more to go. We have y equals f of the absolute value. Now this is a different absolute value than the one we did earlier. How do I handle it when the absolute value is just on the x? Julian?
The right side of the graph.
I draw the right side of the graph, just like he said. I just reproduce it. There's the right side of the graph. Then I simply recopy it on the left side. I don't worry about what was on the left side in the beginning because the negative x's have been wiped out. All the x's are going to be positive. So whatever happened on the positive is exactly what's going to happen on this side. And then finally the last one. All right, what's going to happen? Look where that 2 is. That number is going to divide your width. So in the beginning, I went over 2 and up 3. So start drawing my trapezoid. Over 2 up 3 is going to be over 1 up 3. Everything is half as wide. So the trapezoid that did go over 6 now only goes over 3. It's half as wide. Every one of these was 2 steps in the original. Now everything is just 1 step. This guy was 2 wide. Now he's only going to be 1 wide. There you go. So on your test, you will have a whole page of graphing just like this. On Monday, your graphing quiz will look just like this. Now the next 2 pages are the rest of the test. So I'm in the back of that and in the next page. So take a look at it. And we have time to do a couple of problems. The rest will be your homework. Of what you see here, what do we need to do together? What you see on these 2 pages right here. What do we need to do together? What would you like to do? Which one, Lauren? The box problem? All right, let's do the box problem. We talked about these yesterday. We definitely need a calculator for the box problem. We have a 13 by 9 piece of paper that we are cutting corners out of. I need an equation for my volume. Now remember, volume is length times width times height. X is the width of the corners that I'm cutting out, right? If you're confused by that, it says that in the problem. Length, width, height. The length will be 13 minus 2x. Kids, you did this yesterday. If your paper was 13 long, and you took an x off this side and an x off this side, you're going to be left with 13 minus 2x. What's your width? Same idea. Nine minus 2x. And then what's your height? When you fold up these flaps, what's your height? Isn't your height just x? If you fold it up, isn't that just x? So your height is x. If you look at the two examples we did yesterday, kids, that is exactly the same equation. What is the only tiny little difference in the structure of the equation? That number and that number. Because those are the numbers from the problem, right? So if I made the paper 20 by 20, it would be 20 minus 2x, 20 minus 2x, times x. That structure never changes. That is the volume of your box. Now, what is the domain? The domain is this. Tell me what x is between. Always 0. And it's not 3, it's not 4, it's 4.5. Let's talk about that again. We talked about it yesterday. Think about it. Use your brain. You have a piece of paper that's 9 across. You're going to tear a hunk off both sides of it. It's only 9. Can you tear 5 off this side and 5 off this side? No, you don't have enough. You only have 9. So what's the most that you could tear off each side? 4.5. Because you only have 9. You're cutting it in 2. Half of 9. So that you can take half off each side. That's how we got 4.5. So now I'm going to set my window on my calculator. Window. From 0 to 4.5 for the x's. Right there, this is x min, that's x max. What did we decide about y min yesterday? Has to be 0. Y min is 0. Y is the volume. Volume can't be negative. Now what did we decide about y max? We got to guess. And we do not care. It does not matter what you put in for y max. As long as when you hit graph, you see a hill. So I'm going to go ahead and start with 100. I don't know if that's going to work or not. I'm going to try it. I'm going to put in my equation. Oh shoot, I had something in there from yesterday. There we go. Ooh, just barely, but 100 worked for me. It's just barely, but I got it. Okay, so everybody's seeing the top of the hill? Anybody not seeing the top of the hill? Of course, if you don't have a calculator, okay. Everybody seeing the top?
I'm pretty sure she's not a man.
Now, we're all seeing the top of the hill. How do we find the maximum? Second calc. Calc is in the top row, fourth button over. Click down to maximum, because that's what you're looking for, right? Then what do we need to do? Calculator's asking you. You need to have your cursor on the left. So move it with your arrow buttons. Move the cursor till it's somewhere on the left and hit enter. It will set the bound for you. Then move it to the right. It doesn't matter where, just so it's on the right side over here. Hit enter. Now move it to what looks like the peak. Do not spend a ton of time. Just move it up there somewhere and hit enter. 1.74, 91.44. Gives you these two numbers. Anybody confirm that?
Yeah, that's right.
By the way, we should not be close. We should match exactly. Okay? So if you're doing it right, you're going to get exactly what I got. Now, you might round differently. I rounded to 100. But we should get this answer.
So, when you're going, like, the 2 points to the side of the center, like, are those specific points you have to find, or you just kind of...
Somewhere to the left and somewhere to the right.
Okay.
We have not yet answered the question. The question was, find the maximum volume of the box. So of these two answers, keeping in mind what X stands for and what Y stands for, which one is the maximum volume of the box? The Y. So your answer would be 91.44 cubic inches. What question would that be the answer to? No.
Oh,
How big should the corners be to maximize the volume? So remember yesterday when you were building your boxes? If you wanted to build the very biggest box, you would have ripped out corners that were 1.74 inches. That's how you would have gotten the biggest box. This is the size of the biggest box. This is how you would make it happen. Okay? All right, Jamal has asked for which one, Jamal?
4.
Number 4. What is our general format for problem number 4? Amount times percent. That's it. Okay? So each of these has 3 things we have to fill in. Or 2 things. There's 3 things, they each have 2 things to fill in. Amount percent, amount percent, amount percent. You will always know 4 of those things. So let's fill in what we know. How much 45% has to be mixed with 75% to get 58%. Everybody okay with me plugging those numbers in where I put them? Now where do I put the 32? I've got a 32 in there. Where does he go? He goes with the 75. Doesn't the question say how much 45%? So doesn't it make sense for that to be X? I want to know what that is. That's the variable I'm searching for. So think about what you're doing. In this hand, you've got X ounces of 45%. in this hand, you've got 32 ounces of 75%, and you're going to dump it all in the same bucket. So if you dump in X and you dump in 32, how much is in that bucket? 32 plus X. Right? That's a total. 32 and X. So 0.45X plus, what's that? Oh, I should know that. Is that 24? Yeah. Okay, so let's see, if I move this over there, what is that, 0.13X? Is that right? And then 5.44? I got 41.85 ounces. But I'll wait for confirmation on that. I'm gonna get my bill out of here. Anybody confirm that? Anybody get that same answer, or do I have a mistake?
How'd you get the 18.5?
So what answer is that?
You're right. Multiply these two things together, no, multiply 32 times 0.58. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, we have time for one more. We're not gonna get our test back. It took too long. One more question. Anybody have one more that you see on these 2 pages that you need to talk about? This is what's on the test exactly, Franny. What?
I said number
8. Find the inverse. 8A. This is question 8A. It says find the inverse. Who remembers how to find the inverse? Switch the variable. Very good. Key first step. Then what? Solve for y. So 4x equals negative 2y plus 9. So your inverse, this is problem 8A, is right here.
You stop there.
Yeah, I mean, yes, that's the inverse. For tomorrow, or for Monday, you are to finish practice test 1.